Everyone, welcome to our Inspiring Thoughts podcast. This week, we're very, very lucky to have Lisa Robyn Wood. So, Lisa, welcome on board.
Thank you so much. It's so lovely to be here, Stephen. Thank you. I'm very excited about this conversation.
Yeah, we had a chat off air, so I think it could be a good one today. So,
I hope so. It's going to get raucous, and I'll be like,
we're
"Oh
going to
God!"
get told off for being naughty. So, Lisa is known as the middle manager coach, and also director at Grip Coaching Limited. So, sounds really good, doesn't it? Really exciting. So, would you just tell our audience a brief part of your career, how you've got to today, and your role?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was working in a very corporate environment back in 2014 and had been promoted to a senior manager. I was part of that middle manager group and was loving my job at the time, and then experienced a number of transitions all at once, which was exciting as well at the time it was happening. It was an acknowledgement of my success and my capability, and I've always been one to love a challenge, grab a challenge, take on as much and anything as I can to grow. So it was a really exciting time, but very quickly I found my confidence unraveling, and it was probably the first confidence crisis I'd experienced professionally. I think up to that point I had really thrived in my corporate career and since leaving university, because that's what I went straight into. And so it was a really disconcerting time. I was incredibly unsettled, started to experience a lot of anxiety, which again was a bizarre new feeling, and embarked on a process of just trying to resolve it. And I was quite a proud person, I think, like many of us can be, especially in our work environments, because I was in my mid to late 20s. I'm part of the generation that was encouraged to get as many qualifications as I could, go to university, become an independent female, get a career, don't build a family. I was part of that group. And so it was that work culture and work identity was heavily entrenched in me. And I think when I really struggled at that particular point, I just didn't really know how to resolve it, and I didn't really know how to ask for help either. And I do think that was part of the corporate culture I was in. I think my expectation on myself, but I think it definitely came from that culture, was, well, you've reached this point of seniority, therefore it's up to you to sort it out because you're capable and you can, and you shouldn't need anybody else. And it was a very male dominated environment. I was part of a very large senior team, so we were very top heavy in that regard. And it's that whole too many cooks spoil the broth kind of thing. So everyone was a manager and everyone was senior, and there wasn't a lot of, I would say, real trusted camaraderie. I didn't feel anyone had my back. So I did struggle, I think, with imposter syndrome at that time. And so after about what felt like forever, but I think it was about 12 months, and nearly on the verge of quitting completely, which I knew deep down was not the solution because I didn't know why I was leaving. And I thought, it feels like I'm running away and not facing into the problem, because I couldn't identify what that was at the time. Someone within my family recommended coaching, and I thought, well, what the hell is that? I was only aware of coaching in a sports context, and I couldn't link that to the corporate or professional life. I thought, well, I don't really get how that fits in. But to be honest, out of pure desperation, that's what I did. I sought out a coach to work with me. And I found the whole experience just so transformative and enlightening that one of the realizations I had was, wow, coaching is such an incredible skill, and it's a skill that I could really adopt as a leader and really utilize to elevate my leadership career. So that's what I did. I decided to go out and qualify professionally in coaching, and that was really important to me because I do have quite a strong educational background, and I was really keen that I wanted to do it properly and have it all certified, and to be able to hold up my certificate and go, I did this properly. And so I trained to be a coach, and that was in 2016. And I've been evolving my coaching ever since. and now under the banner of Grip Coaching, specifically working in that middle manager space, which I think does connect to my experience, and feeling as though that is a space that is continually under conflict and under pressure from all parts of the business that it sits within. And I feel it is the most undervalued and under recognized and not invested in enough. So I think that is the space that I love to play in, because of that empathy with anyone who's in a middle manager role.
And it's lovely how you can relate to it. So and also the passion coming through about actually they're the people you want to help and support. And I noticed as well, similar to your career. So I had a crisis of confidence as well. And my career was flying, it was going in the right direction. I got put forward for a job that actually I didn't want. And I knew I didn't want it, but it was like, you've got to go for it. It was very that macho career. You've got to go and do it. And it was terrible. It was an awful experience. I didn't do very well in the interview. I didn't want the job. And the feedback I got after was just demoralised me. And then I was recommended a coach. So by one of the HR colleagues, said, actually, really good guy, needs his confidence picked up. And a gentleman that was studying to do his coaching qualification, a gentleman called Eric, I spent 6 sessions, and that was transformative, very emotional. So to get through, but actually I thought this is a really good thing. And like you, I trained to do my coaching in 2019, and I think we said off air, I thought I was quite a good coach. I thought, oh yeah, this is going to be easy. And I suddenly realised I wasn't a very good coach. I was more crossing feedback, mentoring, maybe a dabble of coaching. But I loved getting the transformation of coaching. Seeing the difference in people, and also they've got the resources. Our job is to elicit and help support them kind of find that information. So I can totally relate to your story and your journey so far, which is wonderful, isn't it?
And I mean, I started my coaching training knowing full well that I wasn't a good coach. I was very much a teller and a director. I developed my management style through learning and getting things wrong multiple times, I would say, and trying lots of things and probably floundering and struggling with lots of different personalities and never really knowing why, and being frustrated that people were different and not the same as me. And it was a real steep learning curve, the coaching experience, the training, because I think it highlighted what I already knew for sure. But it was a lot to do with changing habits of behaviour and changing ways of doing things. I mean, my listening skills were definitely the ones that were challenged the most, because I realised actually I wasn't a very good listener. I was always thinking ahead and probably jumping to advice. And so I mean, it really was it's been an incredible experience and a real test. And then there's still skills that I evolve now. It's something I'm really consciously aware of and looking at, well, how can I be even better than I already am? But it's interesting.
No, I think it's brilliant. And I think it's one of those worlds that you just keep learning. There's different styles, different techniques, different ways of working with people. Had to really get that client to see a different view. And it was only recently this week I worked with a client and just tried completely different things, and it worked. And I thought, I've seen that. Actually, I can take it and put it in my style, which is brilliant. So a lot of people say to me, Lisa, what is the difference between coaching, mentoring, therapy, counselling? What in your words is kind of what is coaching? What is it different from the others?
I think the way I differentiate it is coaching is all about looking ahead, being forward focused. And in a way that is about enabling the individual who's being coached to do that for themselves. And supporting them to think differently, make changes, and move towards what they want instead of where they are currently. Whereas in comparison, I think counselling is more, it's medically recognised, whereas coaching is not. It's not a medical intervention like counselling is. So that's quite a stark difference. But counselling is much more focused on, well, what's happened, and looking behind, if you like. So looking at what's happened already in the past and unpicking that. And it's not that coaching doesn't touch upon what's gone before, but it never stays there. It's more about using that as additional information to inform the future. But I think counselling tends to be, we need to unpick and explore that and decipher it. And therefore, sometimes I think it has the danger of that you can then just remain there and get a bit stuck there. And then mentoring is, I think, is a fantastic supportive intervention and is also aligned to achieving goals, but with much more of an informative stance and a directive stance. So, you know, mentors offer ideas, recommendations, advice. And I know from my corporate background, we used to describe identifying a mentor as someone who has potentially achieved the career path that you're wanting for yourself, and therefore approaching them to learn from their experiences, which is not coaching, because coaching is not about that advice giving or directive. You know, I coach people from a wide range of backgrounds and career backgrounds, especially, whose industries I have never experienced. But that's not relevant, because I'm there to focus on them as a person. Actually, yes, I help them with their careers, but not from the perspective of aligning on their backgrounds and skill sets. And I coach engineers. I mean, I've got no background in engineering, quite rightly, because my skills don't suit that in the slightest. But I can help them to transform and achieve just as much.
And I really enjoy that, working with people, not from if I took my banking background, I love it working with different people from different organisations, because you can offer a different perspective, because you're not part of that experience. I really enjoy that. Same. I do as well. And I think actually it helps me to stay much truer and authentic to coaching and the coaching process, because there's no ability to tap into any experience or knowledge in that sector. So I really can truly focus on them as a person and stay true to coaching without any danger of slipping into bad habits around mentoring. I mean, I would say I wouldn't really describe my style as pure anyway. I do, especially because I'm a mentor as well. So I do have a bit of a blend of the two, and can move between them, and often work with my clients to understand, well, what is it that they would want and prefer, so that we can get that right and that they are getting what they're looking for. Excuse me. But yeah, I think that's how I would determine the difference between those areas. And that's the bit I thoroughly enjoy as well, is about the forward thinking, moving forward to kind of a destination point of view, but helping the client see those small baby steps to get there, rather than the big audacious goals. It's actually unraveling and going, let's just talk about how you're going to do next 2 weeks, next 3 weeks. Let's start to work forward. And I love the transformation when they start to achieve that, rather than, I'm going to run the London Marathon, and you go, have you ever run before? No, I'm going to do it tomorrow. That's not really going to happen. But and I've definitely learned with my skills over the 4 or 5 years of I can do a good hybrid between coaching and mentoring, but depending on the client, what's necessary, that's really helped and worked and probably elevated my skill set, if that makes sense. So why should people go to a coach? I get asked that question a lot. Why would I go to a coach? Why would you say in your world?
Why would I need one of those? Like how I felt back in 2014 when I was first recommended coaching, and I was like, but why would I want one of them? I think how I describe it is, coaching really helps and supports you to get out of your own head. I think we can get really stuck in our own heads and with our own thoughts, and coaching helps to really create a structured, facilitated space where you can explore that and where you can speak aloud what you're thinking, one, to be heard, but also, I think, so importantly, so you can hear yourself. I think when you externalize what's going on in here in your mind, you hear it really for the first time, and you hear it from a perspective that you've not yet experienced. And I know personally for myself how powerful that is when I do it, because just listening to myself and what I'm saying helps me to make sense of it and to go, is that really what I'm thinking? And well, what does that actually mean? And actually, is that even what I do mean? And I think it helps you to really process those things, so that, you know, when you're in a space where you are struggling or you feel stuck, and, you know, feeling stuck is not ever the reality. You know, you're not physically stuck, but there's something just not becoming clear for you in your mind. You're not able to move yourself forwards. That externalization of your thoughts, I think, is so powerful to work through it and to understand. So I think for me, coaching really helps to create that space. And it's often the feedback I get the most from my clients is, you know, and they'll say it in the sessions, you know, we'll reach the end of the session and I'll be like, how did that work for you today? And what have you learned? And probably I would say the most repeated comment is just having that space to think and to work things through and to come to realizations and learnings about what's going on and what they can do about it. I think that's so important, as well as then knowing that you've got someone there who is an expert, who you can trust, who isn't going to judge you and has no bias, because they're not connected to your situation. They're not part of it in any way, and can really support you to be accountable. You know, I'm sure people have heard this before about having an accountability partner. And I think that's exactly how a coach can operate for their clients. Because I think, you know, we all say things like, I'm going to eat a bit less, or I'm going to be a bit more healthy, or I'm going to do some more exercise. But, you know, I think we all have those kind of lofty goals, but because we don't clarify them, we don't specify them, we don't cement them, and we don't really share them often with anyone else, the only person we're holding ourselves account to is us. And sometimes that it's not strong enough. So I think that's often where a coach can, you know, represent that the other party, who can be very much like aware of what you're wanting to achieve and can then question you about it. Not question you in an pressured sense, but, you know, you've told them you're going to do something, and actually the coach is encouraging you to do that for your own benefit and for yourself. It's not for them, but just having someone there who's witness to it, I think, can create that.
And I really enjoy that, because I find that with clients that I work with around the accountability, and it's not you and I making notes, because we make very little notes as in when we work, and that because we're interacting with the clients. But there's that bit there of going, well, I'm going to go back now and talk about what I said I was going to do versus how have I got on through it, etc. And I think the other bit about that accountability, I've seen people before that have like one coaching session. They then only have one, so rather than 3 or 6 or 9, etc. But they get such a dopamine hit, and they go and tell people they're going to go, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to do this, so they keep getting a dopamine hit, but they never actually do it, because they keep getting the hit of joy from it, rather than actually going back and going, well, how have I got on with it, what have I done from that perspective. And I really enjoyed about you saying about getting it out, hearing it for the first time. Because we also do that in mediation work with clients around, when they talk about it, they find it very cathartic, very therapeutic. They go, did I really mean that? You go, well, that's what you said. And actually, what I also like is clarifying people's words. So if someone says, I want to be more confident, just tell me what confidence means. And the person goes, do you know what? I haven't really thought about that before. Let me digest it and break it down.
Absolutely.
I find that's the kind of light bulb moments I really enjoy, when people go, that's what I mean, and that's what I want to do about it. But it's fascinating, isn't it?
I mean, people's language I find so interesting anyway. But I think, you know, one of the most interesting parts is when you recognize how the language that you're using is affecting your thoughts and therefore your actions. And how just by making adjustments to your language, I think, one, understanding the language you're using and whether it's even accurate, and then having the opportunity to delve deeper into it, like use that great example of confidence. I mean, that's the question I ask always, because confidence is a very small word for many things.
Yes.
You know, and it means something different to everybody. It's not the same thing. And then breaking down what's confidence even made up of? And that's when you can really start to enable people to work through what they're thinking, what's going on, what's potentially holding them back that they'd never even realized. And you can therefore make those changes, you know, to resolve things going forwards. And so, you know, language is, I mean, I could wax lyrical about language, but I think, you know, it has such a powerful influence on our behavior if we recognize it. And having the opportunity to understand that and then correct any language that's being unhelpful to us is is really, really, really beneficial, I think.
No, I think it's great to really delve into. And I think, as you said, that client then goes, let me just think about this for a minute. What am I actually trying to articulate? What is it my purpose behind it? What am I trying to achieve?
What
rather
do I
than just
actually
put a
mean?
label on it that you go, I'm not really sure. But that's the skill of a coach, is to not just stay at that surface level, is to break it down so that the colleague can see, which is wonderful. And what would you say are the 3 key benefits you've seen from your clients from coaching? What have they benefited from coaching?
So I think I mentioned one just then, which is that space. I think, you know, I work in the corporate space and with entrepreneurs as well. And I think we all work in such a fast-paced environment, and there's always so many things we could be doing. And it's so easy to be distracted by those things and to avoid working on ourselves because that's easier. And I think actually creating structured, defined space for yourself where you can just do something for you is one of the key benefits, where you really can just think and take stock of what's going on. You know, I still talk about it now. I think the best advice I was ever given as a manager was to block out 30 minutes of my diary every week to thinking time and to protect it with everything, because I was told that is the most impactful thing you can do as a manager for your team, is to actually take that 30 minutes and do some thinking for yourself about what's going on, how are things working, how are you doing, because that way you can ensure you're always doing the right thing and being the best you can be. And I think that's true of the coaching space for you and as an individual. So I think that's one of the key benefits. I think the others are some of probably what I described in my own coaching experience, which is, I think, the benefits around how you can have such an insightful and enlightening experience where you really truly realize so much about yourself in terms of your capabilities, the potential you have, and really connecting with that, you know, and realizing what your, if you like, superpowers are. Because I think when I was really struggling with my confidence during my corporate career, I'd really lost a lot of that. I'd lost my self-belief. I'd lost my understanding of my capabilities and my strengths through my own negative thoughts, of which I'd got into a real cycle of habit around. I'd eroded them. So I'd literally managed to build my own glass ceiling that no one else had given me, that was there saying, well, that's as far as you can go. You're not going to be any better than this. And at that point, better than this felt pretty crap. So, but it was all fictitious. It didn't exist. No one had said that. And I think my coaching really enabled me to understand what was going on and the triggers behind those feelings so I could address them. But it really reconnected me with my strengths and my capabilities. And the third benefit, I would say, and this was part of my own experience as well, and it's very much what I'm focused on for my own clients, is that empowerment to go, well, now you understand all of this about yourself and what you want, how are you going to utilize that knowledge and what are you going to do about it? You know, I describe myself as a woman of action, and I love other individuals of action, people who really want to get on, so they get on, they do stuff. You know, it doesn't matter whether it's the wrong thing, but they're always trying things out, and they are always trying to move themselves along. And, you know, even when things are tough and they're challenging and maybe even they're fearful, they don't let those feelings consume them and cement them to that spot.
Yeah.
They do something about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where coaching really helps and supports people, is to move them along and to always be thinking about what could you do then, or what would you like to do in this situation, or, and I think therefore you're always making progress in some form, and that progress involves always learning. Because I mean, we used to have a bit of a joke in my corporate, one of my corporate roles especially, where managers were always saying to us, I'm going to empower you to do this. And it was ironic because there was nothing empowering in the statement whatsoever. They were always telling you what you were going to be doing, which was the complete opposite of being empowered. Just being told what to do is not empowering. And it used to make me laugh a lot. So I have this association with this word about, and probably why I'm so passionate about it, is that, it's about getting that part right.
Yes. Yeah.
And putting yourself in control of what you're doing. Again, I'll link that to my own coaching experience. I didn't feel in control of anything at that point. And I felt like work was happening around me, and I was an observer desperately trying to contribute and get involved. And so, and this does link back to why my business is called Grip. A lot of it was to do with getting a grip of my own success and getting a grip of my results.
Yeah. And I really, really find, because that's the same journey, that if you think about glass ceilings, how people set, etc., it could be a bad experience. And from that point of view, and I found that. So my career was flying, bad experience. Then I suddenly thought, you know what, hunker down, surround myself, protect myself, that I can't get damaged or hurt again. That kind of stuff. And did it limit my career? Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did limit my career. I could become a bit cynical, all this kind of stuff. And then, like you, I realized over the years of, it's all in my control. Having the coaching that I had, the work that you could start to grow. And I'm a great believer of people just growing each day, small baby steps, growing each day, because if you don't grow each day, you'll get left behind. And that's my kind of big belief of where I work with so many people. They go, I'm just happy in my job. I just do my job, go to work, go home. That's great for today. But next week, next month, we know the industries keep changing. You've got to keep your skills current, up to date, moving forward from that point of view. And I think the other bit is giving the control back to the person.
Yeah.
They are in control to make the changes. Nobody's telling them or forcing them. They're coming up with their ideas that helps them move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Fantastic. So probably a very closed question, so not a really good open question. Should organisations invest in coaching? Should they do it?
Yes, they should.
Yeah, there we go. Done. That was an easy question.
Yeah, that was an easy one. But I think it links to what you were just saying. Often I hear very much from organisations that they're frustrated that their people won't take accountability.
Yeah.
And I think, well, how are you enabling them to be accountable? How are you actually encouraging that? Because telling them what to do is not going to generate accountability.
Yes. Yeah.
Telling them what to do is you providing the focus, the answers, the solutions, and telling somebody to get on with it. Well, they will only ever then, if they even choose to do it, because that's not motivating either. If they haven't come up with those ideas, they may not even agree with them. But you're giving them always an excuse as to why they've not done something and why something's not gone well, because it didn't come from them. So, I think it's so important for organisations to invest in coaching, whether that be through, well, I think of it in two ways. I think it's important for an organisation to invest in coaching understanding for their employees and to base a culture around coaching principles, because I think coaching principles enable organisations to support just bloody great conversations. I think so much of the success of businesses and leadership in businesses as well and their teams is down to relationships. And I know there are going to be many people who just find that icky and go, ugh, it's just, we're not here to make relationships. But it is the foundation for effective teams. And, if you want to have a successful business, your teams are your success, because they're the people working for you to deliver your results. And I think if you work around coaching principles, you're encouraging those strong relationships that are trusting, that are open, that are honest. And you're supporting an environment like I was describing, where the more inclusive they are and you're getting your people involved, the more accountable they're going to be. And that increases the effectiveness and the efficiency of your organisation, because it's spreading the load. And it's encouraging people to be creative because they're using their brains. And why would you not want that? But I think the other side of this is, I'm not saying that everyone within an organisation can be a coach, because I don't think that's true. And I think being a great leader and a manager, yes, it can absolutely incorporate coaching skills and principles, but that they can't, I don't think, in honesty, be coaches full time, because what's expected of them in their role and their responsibilities is so much broader than that. And it can never be completely unbiased, and it can never be without an agenda. And I think, you know, thinking about not just introducing coaching principles and understanding to grow your organisation is just as key as utilising coaches externally, and having the two working as in a partnership, so that you've got both happening, so that individuals can receive pure, true coaching for their own development when required.
And I like the bit of organisation about leadership and development. We get a lot of people, and people I work with, about PDPs and, you know, those kind of things. And the amount of times I see PDPs that have go and be better at the job, and it's dictatorial, rather than the colleague having the coming up with it, the solutions, that motivation, owning it. We all know the percentages that if someone comes up with their own idea, they're going to actually go and do something with it rather than being told what to do.
Absolutely.
So they're going to kind of from that perspective. But I think there's a bit there of, when I think some organizations think it's all or nothing. So they go, oh, they're going to be coaching all the time. And people always do this to me. They go, coaching. And I go, it's not woolly stuff. It's really intense, good stuff. But actually, they've got to realize that there's the organizational goals. Coaching can link into it. But as you said there, there's a lot of people that you and I would coach externally that help give a different third party view to develop the colleagues. So it's a really, really imperative thing. And definitely the production levels higher, the inclusivity, the engagement, by embracing good coaching, is the benefits are untold, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, without a doubt. You know, when we talk about benefits, I read a Guardian article that was published this month.
Now that's very highbrow there. I like that, Lisa.
I'm always trying to keep myself informed, Stephen. Informed and relevant, and especially when the stats back up what I'm rabbiting on about. But you know, the Guardian article I read that was published a couple of weeks ago, the title of it is "Bad Management Has Prompted 1 in 3 UK Workers to Quit." You know, and this is research that's been conducted by the Chartered Management Institute. Of which, in their survey, 28% of their respondents stated that they left their job due to a negative relationship with a manager. You know, and when you hear stats like that, they're not new. I mean, this has been an ongoing issue and a challenge for businesses for years. So it's not new research by any stretch. But I think it really demonstrates why, you know, it comes back to that point that I was saying before about the criticality around relationships. And how, you know, if you can't get the relationships right in your organization, people will walk, you know, they'll vote with their feet, because, you know, people don't leave jobs because of, not very often because of the workplace itself. It's because of people. You know, and I think when you hear stats like that, you can hear loudly, well, what's the solution to this? How do we improve relationships? You've got to improve conversations. How do you improve conversations? You've got to improve communication skills. How do you improve communication skills? Look at things like coaching, because coaching really does teach you about how to engage with people, how to grow your curiosity, how to grow connections, how to hold a space. You know, I think so much of this, you know, when we talk about communication, I think people immediately jump to the verbal side of communication. But so much about good quality communication and conversation is about listening and being silent. And I think it's trying to enable more and more people in those management positions to understand that and to be able to adopt that. You know, I think that's really where the benefits come into it.
And I think that the bit, just to follow on from that, which is really, really good, about the motivation point of view, the colleagues will be more motivated.
Yeah,
The
100%. Yeah.
communication part, because if you see, even in our mediation work and coaching companies, if you were to do the family fortunes top answer like Vernon Kay, it's always communication. That people can't tell it. And I know with yourself as well that you do work in DISC, so you work in
Yes,
the
yeah.
DISC
I'm a disc
profiling as well.
practitioner. Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, same as me. And do you know what? It's that's paid dividends by getting
Oh,
people to understand different communication styles, and actually how, if you want to influence people about how to turn up a dial, turn down a dial, etc.,
mm,
and people go, oh, that's quite simple. And it is when
mm.
they start to understand each other better, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. I think DISC is such a powerful tool, like many of these personality profiling tools are, because for one, they give you greater insight into
Yeah.
yourself and those around you, and an appreciation for the fact that we are all different and that's fine. It's
Yes.
not that any one of us is wrong or right. We're
Yeah.
different and we can complement each other if we can understand more about how we think, why we think that
Yeah.
way, the approach that we're using, why that is the case,
Yeah.
and what we're looking for. And therefore, you can make the adjustments. But I think with all of those tools, the benefit they give is language.
Yeah.
Now, we talked about language earlier, but I think they give us the language to be able to share more and explain more about ourselves to one another,
Yeah.
and especially when, I love having that external document you get with these types of things where you get your report and you've suddenly
Yes.
got an object, you've got an object that you can reference to and use
Yeah.
it. And then especially when I do work with teams, it's wonderful because everyone has one
Yeah.
and everyone can refer to it and everyone can talk about it to each other with their
Yeah.
tool. And it just helps. Again, it goes back to that, like the power of externalization, and you
Yeah.
take it out of yourself and it becomes objective. It's
Yes.
no longer subjective.
Yeah.
And it can really encourage that exploration of
Yeah.
differences,
Yeah.
and how they can, as I said, very much work together.
Yeah.
But I love what you said about motivation, because I think, and again, this is one of the areas that comes up often in my coaching with managers, is I'm really struggling to motivate people. And
Yeah.
again, it's another one of those words like motivation and empowerment,
Yeah.
and where we use it, but I don't think we necessarily get it. We
Yes,
don't
correct.
really understand what it means and what we're talking about. And then motivation as a word is going to be different for everybody. So again, it
Yes.
has that complication
Yeah.
of, well, when I'm using it, it's going to be different for every person I apply
Yeah.
it to. But then how do I get to the real depth and detail of that? It's
Yeah.
about being curious and asking the questions that are going to break that down. And
Yeah.
again, I'm going to go back to my highbrow article of The Guardian. But a third of individuals stated that if they had an ineffective manager, they were going to be less motivated to do a job.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, again, it's not really rocket science. If you don't really connect with your manager, if you don't feel supported by them, if you're not motivated by them,
Yeah.
you're not going to be doing a good job.
No.
It's kind of, you're so distracted by what's going on and their ineffectiveness, if you like.
Yeah.
You get distracted by their behavior, by what they're not doing,
Yeah.
that your energy is in the wrong place and
Yeah.
it's not in the doing a great job. And
Yeah.
if you don't feel supported, you're not going to be really striving either. So,
Yeah.
when you think about it like that, and the fact that those individuals also are then planning to leave,
Yeah.
your business is in a scary place.
Yeah.
It's not
But it's
in a
also,
strong place.
it heightens that level of, they keep looking for mistakes.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
rather than coaching or developing that person and working with them about the best things, and I've seen that so many times, people have been in jobs 10, 15 years and they've had a really good career, and then all of a sudden they make a mistake or do something wrong, and the line manager then, right, I'm now looking for those.
Yes.
Well, and not be funny, that cortisol rushing through that person's body, they're going to make even more mistakes. It's going to cause issues and problems, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Rather than going, let's just sit down and unwind this a bit. What's gone on? What's going wrong?
Yeah.
And I think the other bit with coaching allows us sometimes to dip into that family, what's going on outside work, to really understand, to pull that forward. I find that that's that real bit where that person trusts us to really share some information to kind of help them move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, I always say, I don't think anyone goes to work to do a crap job.
Yeah.
Like no one does that. No one wakes up and goes, I know today I'm going to make sure I'm really rubbish.
Yes. Yeah.
That's not that's not true. So like
Yeah.
if someone is showing up and is not doing well, it's about supporting them to understand and for you to really
Yeah.
understand what's going on here.
Yeah.
And how do we then ensure that we can change that together?
Yeah.
But that requires a conversation.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds so easy, doesn't it? About conversation. And I say to people, you've got to lean into these
Yes,
conversations. You
yeah,
can't walk away from them. And that's what I see between a good manager and a good leader, is that they will lean in and go, actually, you don't see yourself today, Lisa. Are you okay? Should we have a
yeah.
chat? Whereas the poorer leaders or managers go, do you know, it's just a one-off. But then you
Mm,
work out in the year there's been 17 one-offs,
yeah.
and then people don't lean into it. So I find it. So we're in agreement that coaching's good.
Yes, coaching is good. Everybody go out and get coaching. Yeah.
Yes.
Organizations invest in coaching. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Thank you.
Yeah. That's the job done. So for yourself, so for the rest of 2023 and
Yeah.
2024, what are you working on for your own development?
Oh God. Right. Got to keep a succinct list. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know whether you found this when you completed your training as a coach, but I think I always claimed when I completed my university degree that I'd never write a word again. And I was done with learning. Oh, the
Yeah.
irony. And what a ridiculous statement anyway,
Yeah.
done with learning. I think ever since starting my coaching journey, and yes, I've used that word journey. We love that as coaches, don't we? So cliched. I think I've continually strived to learn more and to
Yeah.
continue to learn and increase my skill set. So I think this year has been really about focusing on honing my skills as a coach, and I've been working a lot with my supervisor. So I think supervision is really important for coaches. So for anyone who doesn't really understand that, it's coaching for coaches. It's making sure that we are always, as coaches,
Yeah.
investing in our own personal development and walking our talk, really, as I
Yeah.
describe it. And so that's also involved some group supervision as well and co-coaching, because I love to learn from other people. And actually, I think going into next year, I think a big part of my personal development is focused around actually where coaching is going and staying quite current with the industry.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about AI this year with the arrival of, Chat
Yeah.
GPT and other AI supported platforms. But it is an area that frightens me a little bit. I do
Yeah.
sort of think, oh, I don't like the idea of this. I jump straight to like films like I, Robot and The Matrix
Yeah.
and start freaking out. It all feels a bit too surreal for me.
Yeah.
But I'm mindful always of those sort of areas. Anything that triggers that kind of reaction in me, where
Yeah.
I'm like a bit of disbelief or a bit of resistance, I tend to, I'm going to borrow your lean in. I probably lean into those to see, well,
Yeah.
if I'm feeling adverse to them, is there something
Yeah.
there for me to learn,
Yeah.
and to try and just better inform myself? So I am going to be exploring that a bit more. I'm not saying I'm suddenly going to start coaching in a AI
Yeah.
space, but or adopting many of those tools, but it's
Yeah.
something I'm mindful of and want to stay informed around.
Yeah, and it's good, and I just reflect on that. So since I started my coaching in 2019, I've never read so many books,
Yeah, God,
and
yeah.
the pure reason
I've
being,
got a pile here that needs
I
actually
enjoy them.
reading.
I enjoy reading. Was if you said to me going back, do I like reading? No, that's not my cup of tea. It wasn't my thing. But actually now, just picking up snippets of books, understanding theories, kind of to work with people. And I know the cliche you said about journey. It's a
Yeah.
good journey, isn't it? Just to keep
Oh, it
going.
is a
Actually,
great
that's
journey.
I
Yeah.
quite like that. And I think, like you with the AI world, it fascinates me. I just need to understand it a bit better,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
all you
same.
hear is like the AI taking over the world and all this kind of stuff, and then we start to go to iRobot, Matrix. We're
Yeah,
like, oh, what's going to
exactly.
happen? Terminators here and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Whereas actually, I
exactly.
just think that there's a bit there, like you, I want to lean into and go, what's it all about? How's it work? Those kind of
Mm,
things.
mm,
And I think one of my personal things for this year is I still want to keep going out and learn tricks of the trade. There's some good new things. So we used Lego recently with a group of people to work
Oh
with. So we've done some
yes.
good stuff. But we're just trying to do different bits. And we've got jigsaws we use with people
Yeah.
to really really get their kind of thinking differently.
Yeah.
And that you see people really kind of come out of their comfort zone, but into a new comfort zone. So that's the bit for me, is just keep trying to find new different ways of working.
Yeah,
And
I
it
love
kind of
that.
make people interesting.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, the whole like tapping into the idea of play
Yeah,
and helping us to open up our brains in new ways by being creative and
yeah,
playing and yeah, using our imagination. I think
yeah,
there's some really interesting tools out there. Lego
yeah,
is one that keeps coming up actually. It's something
yeah,
I'm really intrigued in, especially with my disc workshops, because
yes,
just to bring them to life a bit more, make them a bit more engaging, a bit more
yes,
interesting. And
yeah,
who doesn't love a bit of Lego anyway?
yeah.
So yeah, that's
It's
definitely a
it's
space that I
fascinating.
want to tap
And
into.
even the other day, I thought, you know what, I can make it a bit more interesting with the disc stuff. So I've bought Twister. Now I'm
Oh
not
yeah,
getting
it's
people do
brilliant.
Twister because
Yeah.
but actually you can have a good bit of fun with it. Those kind of, and it makes it different.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
there's loads, I think now, lots of different play scenarios. You
Yeah,
just need to be
yeah,
creative
yeah.
around it. But yeah, they're fantastic. So Lisa, how can people get hold of you? How can they contact you?
So I am active, very active on LinkedIn and Instagram. So if you look up Lisa Robyn Wood, you will find me on LinkedIn. On Instagram, it's at grip_coaching. And then there's my website, which is gripcoaching.co.uk. And I also have my own podcast, which is called The Coaching Cast, which is hosted with my very good friend and fellow coach, Susie Hunt. And that's a space where we talk a lot about the workplace and different issues and topics in the workplace, all with an undertone of coaching, I would say. So
Yeah,
we really try to help bring coaching to life as a
yeah,
skill and a tool, and offer coaching ideas and
yeah,
tips that listeners can learn from, adopt, give it a go
yeah.
themselves, and just see how it really helps them to evolve in their career space.
Yeah. No, fantastic. So, Lisa, you've been wonderful today. And I know we had a good natter beforehand, and I know we'll have more good natters to come, which is great. Really,
Yeah.
really good. So, can I just say, I've really, really enjoyed today. You've been really open, really curious. So, from that point of view, so can I just say, enjoy the weekend coming up as well. But thank you ever so much for joining our podcast. You've been an absolute star. So, thank you ever so
Oh,
much.
thank you. And thank you so much for having me, Stephen. It's been lovely to talk to you and to talk to all your listeners as well.
Oh, thank you, Lisa.